I want you to picture this for a moment. A family calls you in tears. Their mom has been discharged from the hospital, and the doctors are saying she can't go back home alone. The adult children are panicked. They have no idea what options exist, how to evaluate them, or who they can trust. They need guidance, but not just any guidance. They need someone who will truly listen, advocate for them, and walk them through every step of the decision. For many families here in the Bay Area, that someone has been Anita Varelas. Hi, I'm Dale Corpus, the Senior Transition Specialist and real estate expert based in the San Francisco Bay Area. As part of the sandwich generation myself, I know how overwhelming it can feel to juggle raising kids while caring for aging parents. I created this podcast, Simplify Senior Transitions, to make these conversations easier. My promise to you is this: every episode brings real stories, practical tools, and expert insights to help families move forward with confidence instead of stress. Today, I'm joined by Anita Varelas, the founder and CEO of Neighborly Senior Placement, one of the most respected placement agencies in Northern California. Anita didn't set out to become just another placement agent. She set out to change the way this industry operates. Her approach has always been rooted in compassion, ethics, and transparency, but she's also a true leader and mentor, raising the bar for how professionals in this field serve families. Over the years, Anita has built a reputation not just for matching seniors with the right communities, but for creating a culture that puts people first, both the clients they serve and the agents she develops. In today's episode, we're going beyond the basics of placement. We're talking about leadership, legacy, and what it takes to scale a mission-driven senior care business without losing sight of your purpose. If you're curious about the inner workings of the placement industry, or you're a professional looking to make more impact, you're going to get a lot out of this conversation. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast, where we help families navigate senior living, real estate, and everything in between. Hosted by Senior Transition Specialist Dale Corpus, this show brings you expert insights, real solutions, and stress-free strategies to make senior transitions simple. Ready to dive in? Let's go.
And we're back, everybody. Anita, welcome to the show today. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Dale? Thanks for having me. I'm really, really excited.
Hey, I'm so excited to have you. Again, my first episode, as you remember, was with one of
Mhm.
your own placement advisors, Tanvi, and it's so good going back full circle.
Yeah.
Now I'm bringing you in onto my show. So I definitely appreciate your time. So jumping right into my first question, Anita, what originally inspired you to start Neighborly Senior Placement?
Sure. I love this story. This has been my dream. You may know, or others may know, I started in the senior living industry over 22 years ago as a 15-year-old waitress in the dining room of an assisted living in the East Bay. And I kind of grew up in senior living, and that has been wonderful for me because I've seen how it changed and evolved over time. But from the very beginning, as I worked my way up in senior living, when I was a receptionist, I remember watching the sales directors invite people in and people coming in really with questions that they needed answers and needing to figure out, how do I help my loved one? I love the hospitality of the sales director role, so I stepped into that. Majority of my 22 years, I've been a sales director inside senior living communities in California. I've also been a regional sales director in California, Oklahoma, and Texas. But taking it back to the beginning, I knew from the very start of my career that one day that I wanted to have my own placement company. There was a colleague of mine. She is still doing placement. She has built her company in the East Bay, and I worked with her. She was a sales director, and she went on to start a placement company that has since grown. And I remember looking to her, and that was the first experience I've ever had with a placement agency. And I love what she did and how she helped people. And I always thought I would love to be able to do that, to utilize my knowledge, my expertise. Throughout the years, I've made business plans, I've prepped. Timing is everything. And, finally, I think the right time was about 3 years ago, and I started Neighborly. So it's something that I've had the passion for. It has been on my heart, and I've thoroughly prepared for over the course of my career. And it finally came 3 years ago, and it's grown significantly. And I think it's grown significantly because of the background and the preparation and the support of my industry colleagues and all of those experiences over the past 22 years.
Yeah. I love the fact that you worked in different parts in the senior living industry. So you really have
Yeah.
this 360-degree of view with you being that placement agent. So you see a lot of things that people might not even see because they don't know what to look for, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I've seen so much. I feel like there should be a reality TV show of us, or I should write a book. But there's so many really unique experiences that you can't know how to react to unless you've gone through it. And I've gone through so many things that have prepared me for today.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in the early days?
The early days, some of the biggest challenges would be the general public doesn't know what senior placement is. Luckily, pros and cons, I had a great base of professional partners who knew what it was, and they would refer people who needed my service to me.
Right.
But it's a problem from the beginning and a problem still today that the general public, 80% of people, they're hopping on Google to search senior living options near me. And so many different things come up. And you know what some of those things are. Sometimes lead generation, skilled nursing, boarding care, what's an assisted living, what's independent, what is a buy-in community. All of these terms in hand, majority of people have not spent time researching senior living until there is a need, right? And when you have a need, you're balancing and you're juggling life, your own life, and then your loved one. And then now you're trying to figure out this whole world of senior living, and it's quite overwhelming. So I've spent a lot of effort, both in my early days and even today, doing a lot of education to the general public and really trying to get information out there that you don't have to just do a Google search and walk into the communities. I've been a sales director. I've been on the inside when people walk in. And I love that I'm on this side now. And I think there's definitely benefits to both, but I love that I'm on this side and I can point people to the best match for them,
Right.
not just the matches that are within a 5-mile radius of them, but truly finding the best match. And that's one of the problems that I think we're going to continue to see for a while. But as our industry gets bigger and hopefully more regulated, that we'll have more of a presence and be able to get our message out there that this is a free service to help people.
Right. When did you realize this would be bigger than just a solo operation?
Yeah, I think very early on, I have colleagues in the industry that have done placement before I did. And when I was in the community, they would be bringing clients to my community and helping them facilitate those options. And I definitely admired that. And again, always something that I wanted to do. And I said, this is something that I prepared for a long time. At what point would you say I could make this my full-time job that I am successful in I am doing? How long is that ramp-up period for starting a new business? And I asked multiple colleagues that, and they said generally 6 months to a year, if not longer than a year, before you can get the word out there, and then you're getting clients and you're able to help them to navigate this. So that's what I prepared for. But in the first 3 months, I had reached that milestone that most people don't reach until a year. And it was an overwhelming feeling. I felt extremely blessed that my professional colleagues believed in me and that I would be able to help their clients and their patients through this difficult journey. And at that time, I was doing the work of probably 3 people, not even counting being a business owner. Those things aside, I was helping a lot of people. I wanted to help them with having more time to be able to better serve them. So we expanded with our first team members right before the 1-year anniversary of my company. And it was great. It was a really fun time. I was 9 months pregnant at that time. I decided, I had my whole career,
Yeah.
22 years of life where I've just worked, worked, worked. I've made a lot of companies successful. I've done really good work, put a lot of hours in. But it's funny that I waited until I had a child to start the company. I
Oh,
think all things all at once, and that's
yeah.
maybe where I thrive. But we grew significantly right away, and I was able to bring in industry colleagues that were extremely well known, really VIPs in our industry. And I'm so blessed that they believe in me and that they trust me and my vision for Neighborly. And we've come a long way.
Yeah. Just wanted to add to that. I feel that because of the fact that you've been working in seniors living so long, you are building goodwill and trust along the way. I mean, you were coming into switching over from a W-2 type of position, starting your own business. There's a lot of parallels between starting a placement agency and even becoming a realtor, because
Hmm.
people don't realize that a lot of the business is being able to get consistent leads more than it
Hmm.
is actually knowing the actual process of matching a person to the home, or how to sell a
Hmm.
home or whatnot. But
Yeah.
how to teach somebody how to get leads and how to get the general public to trust you, that
Hmm.
takes a long time. You already
Yeah.
had that from the get-go. And so to me, that speaks just a lot of volumes because of all the goodwill that you built throughout the years, because that just
Hmm.
does not come overnight. So just that's all I wanted to throw out there.
I really appreciate you saying that because the longevity of my relationships is part of my success. And I learned a lot growing up in senior living from a 15-year-old girl to a something woman, right? I learned what I wanted to be as far as a leader, and then I learned maybe what I don't want to be as being a leader.
Right.
And I really strive to showcase that everybody is important no matter our role and that everybody deserves equal respect. And that's something that I really believed in, that we should serve others. And I've really tried hard to do that. And I think that it's shown with my relationships that I've formed over the years. And I'm really thankful and grateful for all of my colleagues.
Okay, let's talk values. What values guide your approach to matching families with the right senior communities?
Knowledge is important. There are a million beautiful communities with modern amenities and chandeliers, and they are very attractive. And I've certainly worked in a lot of those communities.
Yeah.
But that is not the most important thing when you're looking at a community. There's so much more beyond that. I think one of the values that I bring is having been in this industry. I've worked on the corporate side. I know a lot of the corporate players in this industry, and I know the operations behind it, right? I heavily believe that everything rises and falls on leadership. So organizational structure is important. So who is your management company? Who is your ownership group? How do they operate? What are the important values that they have? Because that is going to trickle down to the community level, trickle down to the employee, trickle down to your loved one. And that is something that majority of people will not be able to find out through a Google search. That
Yeah.
is inside knowledge to knowing how these organizations operate and what they prioritize and maybe where they spend a little bit extra money and maybe a little bit less. And that is something that people don't know. They also don't know the reputation. I think after the pandemic, so many things have happened with our industry for both better and worse, but that has really changed our industry. And a lot of communities have operational issues that really came from everything we experienced in the pandemic.
Yeah.
So most people won't know that walking
Yeah.
into a community. They're not going to know their reputation. Majority aren't going to know how to look up their licensing report. If they do, if they're part of maybe the 2% of people who actually know that there's a licensing report and pursue to look it up, how do they interpret that? How do they interpret the different citation? What is a documentation citation versus immediate health risk? And how do they evaluate those? It is very complex. And those are things that we already know reputation. We are very experienced in evaluating somebody's licensing agreement. I also have my RCFE license, not because I own an RCFE, but because I want the knowledge of the operational side. I want to know how to advocate for my clients and I want to know how the community operates as well. So not only to provide the best matches for my clients, but also these are my colleagues that are the executive directors. Their license is on the line. I want to be able to refer people who are a good fit for them so that they can provide the best type of care. It's not just about finding people a community that is, a basic fit right around the corner for them. Every person is uniquely different. I often get asked, Anita, what is the best senior living community? So many people ask me that, right?
Right.
Because I've been to the majority of the communities and I've worked with them. Now, the best fit community for me is going to be a different fit for you, Dale, because we are unique individuals. We both have different health needs, have different financial situations. We both have different hobbies, interests, educational background. There's not one size fits all, and knowing how to differentiate those beyond the aesthetics of a community. Honestly, aesthetics are probably the least important thing when choosing a community. You want to find a community that fits both now for your needs, but then as you progress. And looking at part of our intake process, and I'm saying a lot of things there, but a part of our intake process, we're really getting to know the individual of all those different things, because your medical history now and past medical history might affect how you age, right? And if your body is going to age a little bit differently because of diagnosis you may or may not have, you want to find a community that is a good fit now and down the line so that you're not having to move. So all of those things
Yeah.
to answer your question.
Perfect. Now let's segue into your business and also the team that you're building, because I'm curious. I'm intrigued by everything you're doing. You built one of the largest placement agent teams in the Bay Area.
Mhm.
What's your leadership philosophy?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I heavily believe that everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yeah.
And I think because of my own moral values and my own moral compass that trickle in from my life, I believe that a leader is a servant to people. And I want to the best of my ability, take things off of my team members' plate so that they can be able to help people. And so I look for opportunities to be able to help my team and take on things so that they could just focus on helping people. That is my leadership style. And I think I got that. And I know that I got that from my dad. My dad, he definitely believed in serving seniors. And people probably heard the story, but I attribute my career to my father because he would take us to the seniors in our neighborhood
Mhm.
and he would, from a young age, show me and my brother how to serve them. We would go and cook and clean for them. We would play chess at a young age. We would play dominoes. We would do all these things. And the seniors in our neighborhood, they became our friends. And I think at a young age, I developed relationships with seniors and really how to serve them. My dad always taught me, don't call someone outside of their name, call them Mr. and Mrs. until they give you permission, otherwise not to.
Yeah.
And I grew up with that. And really, my dad would always tell me, Anita, sit down, listen to the seniors, ask questions. They have knowledge, they have wisdom. And those are some of the things that I value. So as a leader, I want to serve others. And that's something that I often say, and I've probably said it 3 times on this podcast. Everything rises and falls on leaders. So I think I do not take that lightly. I constantly reflect to see how can I be a better leader to my team.
Yeah. Excellent. How do you train and mentor new agents to uphold the neighborly standard?
Yeah. So I've definitely learned a lot in 3 years with expanding and hiring on team members. And some of the things that I looked for was a background in senior living and having that experience, but then also having a heart. And I think the team that we have right now, we all share that same heart, which it's so beautiful to be able to operate with a group of women who all have that same compassion, that empathy to serve others and do the right thing. I think everybody on my team, we're all about paying it forward, doing the right thing. So I think I really try to find people who have that heart, but then also that background in senior living. And I think the background in senior living is extremely important because, as I mentioned earlier, you are problem solving for the families and you have so many different unique situations. And so if somebody with a background in senior living has likely navigated something similar to that situation and has the resources of how to know how to overcome that. So I think a background in senior living, senior care is important for what we do. I think it is very challenging to step into this without that, which is something that I learned along the way. But my team, they have a background in senior living and my team members have some have been with me going on their 3rd year. And one of my team members, Tanvi, tomorrow is her 1 year anniversary with
Oh,
us. And it's so beautiful to see how much they've grown over time and just serving people and doing the right thing.
I love that. Let's talk about ethics a little bit. What ethical boundaries do you enforce to protect both families and your reputation?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many. I think ethics is very, very important. In fact, we recently started a local chapter of NPR, a National Referral Placement Association. And that is a national organization that focuses on ethics and best practices. So I mentioned earlier, our industry for placement is unregulated. So it's quite wild. Everybody can kind of do whatever they'd like to do. And that creates some challenges. And NPRA came in and we're really advocating for, if we are going to be regulated, let's have some agreed upon standards in serving others, right? And those are standards that I've tried to implement within my company and within my team. But starting our local chapter, we're really trying to educate and really uphold those standards. So some of those standards and best practices are being transparent with
Yeah.
our client, letting them know that I am going to help you. This is my background that makes me qualified to be able to help you. You're sharing a lot of personal, intimate information with me. Let me tell you why you should trust me, and then also how I'm compensated, because there should not be any pressure, and there should be transparency that we are only paid when somebody moves into a senior living community. And then having a conversation. That family member or that senior should really interview any placement person that they're working with to make sure that it is a good fit for them. And some of the questions would be, how many contracts do you have in the area? What if a community that I like isn't on your list of contracted communities to receive payment from? What do you do in that situation? What is the likelihood that we will be in that situation? How do you navigate that? And I think that I've been asked that, and I think that's a great question. And I think that goes back to our moral values, that we always want to do the right thing and do the right thing for the residents. So myself and my team members have been known. Now we are contracted with the majority of communities in California, and that's not a challenge that we often have. But there are, I could think of one community that is full and has been for a long time. So they don't entertain any contracts or a relationship that way to receive referrals.
Yep.
But if it is a good fit for the client, it is a good fit for them. And they deserve to have that option, regardless of whether or not we've received compensation. And
Yeah.
we've waived our compensation to do the right thing for clients. So I think that is a major ethical thing that we need to promote and that we need to see across the board with all placement people do. But there's a lot of, maintaining the best interest of the client, giving them your time and your attention. We do this 100% of the time. I don't do anything else. This is my full-time job. I work for my clients 7 days a week, as do my team members. Multiple of my team members had tours over the weekend with their clients. And that's another best practice, is we go on tours with our client. This is a very hard decision for them. Majority of our clients are going to reach us over the phone, right? And we then have that conversation. We do our discovery, we learn, then we make some recommendations on the communities. Now, we also meet them at the communities because we want to introduce them to the team members there. We want to make sure that they have a warm greeting, make sure that they have a parking spot and that they know how to check in, and then show them around the community. Something that I like to do after every tour is we step outside and I ask, okay, what did you like? What didn't you like? And I learn so much
Right.
from being on the tour with them because I'm watching their face and I'm listening to how they're asking questions, and I can feel if they like it or not.
Yeah.
And did you like it? Did you not like it? And if you didn't like it, what would you change and how can we pivot? Because it is a problem solving educational journey. Majority of time, we hope we get it right. But if we don't, we want to grow and evolve with them to help them through this process. Also, there's a lot of questions that they may or may not have received answers for. And I want to tell them, okay, this is standard for a community
Right.
and this is above and beyond, and help educate them. Also, there's things like level of care. What is that? How do
Right.
I know how much level of care my loved one will get? That's something that is not always transparent on the community side, and it's kind of hard for a lot of communities to determine until they get the necessary paperwork and things like that. But helping them to at least have an understanding of what that is and maybe what parameters are. So I think touring with your client is so vital. You learn so much and they
Yeah.
feel like you were a part of it.
Wow. Yeah, that was such a thorough answer. I'm sure you're just as
Oh,
thorough
yeah.
with your clients. That was amazing. A related question is, what do you think needs to change in how families find placement agents?
Yeah. I think that comes with regulations. I think if we're more regulated, that we would have standards and maybe more visibility as well. I think majority of people are finding us through more urgent situations of their doctor of hospitals, of skilled nursing, but I think people need to find it earlier because they're finding us out of a reaction and not being proactive. So that's why I spend a lot of my time and my effort in doing things like presentations at senior centers and at libraries and at a lot of different organizations because we need to get ahead of this. 80% of seniors want to live in their home. I get that. I respect
Oh,
that. I truly do. And if that is their wish, I want to make sure that they're set up safely.
yeah.
But I also think that you should have a plan B because are a lot of people living in senior living communities that wanted to stay home. So plan A, if plan A is staying at home, absolutely. But a lot of people aren't really aware of how much that costs. Maybe some of the gaps, maybe that might be a good fit, but sometimes it's not when the care increases and the finances increase because of that. So if it's a good fit, fantastic, but have a plan B. And that's my message when I do these presentations. I get your wishes. I respect that. There's a lot of memories in your home. I understand that. But let's know your options specific to your financial situation, to your medical history, to your location and preferences. So that if the situation comes where you are no longer able to stay at home, you know what your options are. So that is a message that we do spend a lot of time trying to get out there in the general public. I hope with potentially having some type of regulation and formalizing of the senior placement industry that our message would be able to get out there to help more people.
Yeah. Um, I don't know how often this happens, but how do you handle situations where a placement may not work out?
Yeah, it happened. That's never the goal. We always want to do our own thorough research and really find the best community that would be best for the client. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes there might be situations that change when the senior is there, or maybe sometimes things were promised by the community that are not upheld. I've seen both of those. And I think, this goes back to one of the ethical things. I think the ethical part is we are not just interested in helping people move to multiple communities to financially compensate from that, have no interest in that. I think it is very important that you stay connected with your client because this is a very challenging transition. I think I've helped hundreds, thousands of seniors move in communities. It is often not a smooth process,
Right.
right?
Right.
Day of is not smooth. We want to do our best to make it smooth. And then the transition. The resident is getting to know the community. The staff is getting to know the resident. And as they are getting to know that person, things will get better. But sometimes you have families that are not happy with the transition. And so I think on our part, connecting the family with the community and saying, how can we problem solve this? How can we make it better? We thought this community was a good reason, good community for a reason. Let's see if we can work this out, ideally. If for whatever reason it doesn't, at least we have gone to all parties and that we are all on the same page. That is in the best interest of the client to look at other options. And then we'll do that and we pivot and we move forward and we want to grow with them because this is an extremely stressful time.
What kind of relationships do you maintain with senior communities, fiduciaries, or care managers?
Yeah, it's very, very important. Some of these executive directors, sales directors, corporate people have been my colleagues and friends for 20 plus years. I love it. They've seen me grow in my life. They can speak to when I was a teenager and how proud they are of how I've grown. And I think that's beautiful. And they've seen me, through life's challenges and all of those things. And I'm grateful that they've been a part of my journey, but I very much believe in not only serving my clients, not only serving my team members, but the communities
Yeah.
and our community partners. They are also our client, and we also serve each other. And I think that has been really important in the work that we do because my community partners will bend over backward for me and for my client than someone just walking off the street. And I don't take that lightly. I very much value those relationships that I've built over 22 years, but I want to serve them too. I want them to feel like we're partners in this, not like I'm demanding that they do this for my client. And yes, we are advocates for our client. And yes, we will always advocate for our client, even if it goes against what the community is offering or suggesting.
Yeah.
Clients will always come first for all of it. But I think there is a very tactful way to do that where you are still respecting and honoring your community partners to learn and grow through these challenging situations. There are going to be challenges. We're all navigating different things for different people, right?
Yep.
But let's do it together. And I want people to feel like Anita is on my team, even if we are navigating something challenging.
Okay. I know you lead a lot with education. A lot of realtors may not even know, again, what senior placement agents do. What should realtors and senior transition specialists like myself understand about how to work better with placement agents?
I think that is a great question. I think on the real estate side, they often have connections before we do with the senior, right? And maybe the senior has reached out to say, what is my home value? I think I need to start thinking about downsizing, but they have no idea what their next step is. And
Right.
it's overwhelming. They're seniors. They can't access maybe the online tools to navigate. They also don't know how to research senior living communities. And so there's a lot to it. And maybe their adult children are involved, maybe they're not. But it's almost as though they are just stuck with not knowing what does this next chapter of my life look like? This has been such a major chapter. I've been here 30, 40 years. My memories are here. What do I do with my stuff? How do I take care of my spouse? What do I do? And I think it's important for realtors to partner with placement professionals because we are the missing piece to that puzzle. We want to come in and help them to decide, okay, well, this is what we're going to look for in your next stage of life. What's important to you? Let's get it right. Once they find a community that is a good fit for them, good care, amenities, they can get excited and be able to say, okay, my home served a beautiful purpose in my life. I'm now ready for that next stage. But majority of people are not going to get there unless they have a professional like myself to take things off their plate, to give them a vision of what is a potential option for them and to show that and really bring that to life. And so I think it's really vital that realtors and placement professionals work together to help the senior.
Yep. I agree. As a realtor myself, I feel that, I mean, I obviously have a lot of knowledge of the senior living industry, but if I didn't, if I was just a regular realtor and I had a conversation with a senior that was thinking of selling their property, they get stuck if they don't know what their next step is of where
Mhm.
they're going to move to, let
Yeah.
alone a realtor trying to figure out, wait, they don't understand all of the senior living communities and the options and what to even
Mhm.
do. So everybody's stuck. And the family's already overwhelmed. So they do need
Mhm.
somebody that's professional that can guide them through all the options, right?
Yeah.
And let alone guide them through this emotional roller coaster too, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly that.
a related question, how do you navigate working with adult children who are overwhelmed or disagreeing?
Yeah, that's a common challenge. Everybody has family dynamics, probably
Yeah,
you and me included.
yeah,
Everybody has different families, right? And how do you navigate those? I think a perception that we may have is seniors are these sweet older people that have been perfect their whole life. And sometimes they haven't. Sometimes they've had dynamics with their families. And that can be very emotional for maybe a family that had a disconnect
yeah.
and now they are responsible for their parent who maybe wasn't a part of their life. And there's guilt, but also resentment. And how do you navigate and then not judge that person for not wanting to be as involved as maybe somebody might think that they should be, right? And being sensitive to those things. Everybody has a different story, everybody has a different path. And so, really, part of our role is being counselors to the families and helping them to get on board and get together. Sometimes there's multiple siblings involved, and maybe some siblings think, yes, we want mom to move into a community, but the other sibling says, no, I don't think that's a good idea. I want them to stay at home. And how do you get everybody on the same page is really important. So for me, I want to hear each family member out because what's important to one daughter may not be important to the son. And what's important to them is probably not the same thing as the actual senior themselves. So I want to information gather and I want to make a connection because I don't want anybody to see me as, oh, I'm just working for the one daughter to put mom or dad in a community. That's not my goal. I want to bring us all together to see what is the best fit so that you guys can have as much information as possible so that you guys make the decision together. And so I think creating a relationship with each family member as well as the senior to see what is important to you and then bringing that vision together to help everybody just get on the same page.
What do you wish hospitals and discharge planners did differently to support families?
Yeah. Um, I think hospitals, they serve a purpose. They help people in really emergent situation to stabilize them. But then the goal is often to discharge, right? I think the way that it's set up it has a lot of challenges. I think there's a lot of pros and cons to it. I think because it is a fast-paced environment and they're serving a lot of people with a
Mhm.
limited amount of beds often, that they need to make sure one person's stable and then discharge them so that they can bring the next person who has that urgent situation in. And a lot of that is very fast paced. And I think sometimes families feel that, no, my mom can't go home yet. She's not ready. And so I'll see family members appeal because they've only stayed a day or two in the hospital or they haven't stayed long enough in skilled nursing. So I think what I wish, and I don't know the answer, wish I did have an answer. I think working together more with hospital to really help introduce somebody like myself to clients the beginning of the process rather than the end of the process would allow more time for families to feel comfortable with the transition and more time to review resources and get education. I do this for a living. I can help somebody the same day. I know this process like the back of my hand, but families don't. And to navigate the whole process and to make decisions that are going to be often the last stage of somebody's life, it
Right.
is very challenging. So I wish that there would be more time. And one of the things that I can think of is in making that introduction between a senior living placement professional and the family a lot sooner than we typically do. And that's not to say that some people do, some people are excellent at it. But I
Mm.
think there needs to be a lot more education between and communication and partnership between hospitals, skilled nursing, and professionals like myself.
Okay, let's pivot into the evolving industry of placement. What trends are you seeing in Bay Area senior housing demand?
Sure. Yeah. We're California, San Francisco, Bay Area, Silicon Valley. We have a large aging population. We have a large affluent aging population. Sure, there's a lot of variables in that, but we do not have enough senior housing to supply for the amount of people who are aging, right? We're seeing a lot more communities be built. After the pandemic, a lot of pros and cons came from that. I think the digitalization of different tools for us to be more successful in how we help people, that's one of the pros. But maybe some of the cons is that it was a very challenging time and there was a lot of buying and selling after the pandemic because
Right,
people's occupancy would dip. And a lot of communities were recently bought in a couple of years, bought and sold.
right.
And with that, we've had instability with team members coming and going, and really a lot of communities struggling to find their leadership, like an executive director and others. And as I said many times, everything rises and falls on leadership. That executive director role is so important for the community to thrive. And a lot of communities are struggling with that. And because of that, we're seeing a lot of operational issues, a lot of complaints regarding care, a lot of citations at communities, which makes it challenging because it's almost impossible to find a community with a spotless licensing report. Although, off the top of my head, I could think of one, but it's rare because we're experiencing a lot of challenges with staffing. Also, because where we live, the Bay Area, cost of living is expensive, wages
Right.
it's hard to find employees that are compensated well that are going to stay because caregiving is very hard. Senior living, we're always on. You can likely get an easier job for the same, if not more money. The people that stay within senior living really have a true heart for it, but they also have to live. Those are some of the challenges that we see. So, one of the things that I look for, whether I agree with an organization or not, is what is their pay structure? Do you invest in your employees? Because if you have happy employees, you're going to have happy team members taking care of your residents. If your team members are not happy, that is going to trickle down to the care of the resident. And we see that with organizations. And so that is one of the very honest conversations that I have when talking about community. Not only am I going to talk about these are the pros, this is why I picked this
Yeah.
beautiful community for you. But if not, no, there's no community that is perfect. So I am going to educate on the pros as well as the cons, because what I am doing is I'm giving all the information, full transparency to the family, because it is their decision and not mine. So that's very important. So we've seen a lot of that. There's a lot of operational issues. A lot of people have high care because a lot of people stayed home during the pandemic because of just, everything going on. A lot of people have moved into senior living this year. This has been a very busy year for seniors who move into senior living communities. And so that means a lot of people are moving in, needing a lot more care. They're staying home longer, right? We see a lot about that. So they have a higher acuity because people are moving in, needing a lot more care. Does their staffing support that? Do they have proper training for this additional type of care? So all of those things are important things that we have to know when we're helping somebody to navigate this time in their life.
Yeah. What's your best advice for someone new to this field?
Yeah, I hope you fall in love with it. I truly do. And I often say that to people. The people who stay have the heart for senior living. And I want to, for those people, I want to be a connector. I want to be a resource. I always offer my phone number. If you want to call me, if you want to problem solve, whatever it is, please feel free to reach out to me, because I want people to grow and I want people to have opportunities. I think this is a beautiful industry and I want the right people in it.
Yeah. What are some red flags families should watch out for when choosing a placement agent?
Some red flags. We've seen an influx over the past maybe 2 to 3 years of a lot of people getting into senior living because a lot of reasons, but I'll tell you a couple of them. I think with the decline in occupancy, I think a lot more communities started paying for referrals and really advertising that widely, that anybody and everybody that brings me a referral, I will pay you for it.
Mm.
And I think that widened it up to, oh, I don't have to be a senior placement professional. I can send a referral and I can get paid for it. And I think a lot of people unfortunately got into it for the financial gain first. And I think that's created problems within our industry. And for those people who have a background in this, who are truly helping people to decide and figure out the whole process of what's the appropriate place for them, our industry is unfortunately being watered down. And that is affecting the care that the senior is receiving, the service that the family is receiving. That has affected the relationship between the communities and ethical placement professionals, because it's been watered down because there is no regulation. And I would advise that you always interview your senior placement professional. In fact, I love it when somebody calls me and they say, somebody highly recommended you, Anita, but they also gave me another name and I want to interview you. And I thrive on that. I say, absolutely. Let's talk about it. I want to tell you my background. I want to tell you how I can help you. I want to tell you all the great things, but also I want to learn about your situation so we can talk about specifics.
Yeah.
So exactly how I'm going to be able to help you. I think it's important that families are not just stuck with whoever was recommended. I think another challenge is a lot of the referrals are coming from hospitals and skilled nursings, and they now have a million vendors coming to them saying, I do placement. And to somebody that you have a 1-minute interaction with, you have no idea if they do placement and how much placement they do and how long or experience or how much time they have to spend with the individual. And I think that has also watered it down. So I think families definitely should interview their placement professional. I think they should ask, what is your background? How are you an expert in this field? How long have you done this?
Yeah.
I think I would ask, is this your full-time job? Do you do anything else? How much time are you going to devote helping me and my loved one? I'd ask, what are some additional things that you do? Do you go on tours with me? How accessible are you? I'd ask all of those. What are your additional credentials? Do you have a dementia certification? Are you certified as an RCFE administrator? What are these extra things that give you the experience to help me navigate the often final part of my family member's life? Those are important questions.
Yeah. All good stuff. Thank you so much. Can you share a story that really touched you or reminded you why this work matters?
Yeah, absolutely. It's often that we have different situations that just affect us differently,
Yeah.
but it's rewarding to have family members who tell you, Anita, I wouldn't have been able to do this without you, or we toured several communities, and when they found the perfect fit, they cry and they're just overwhelmed with joy. And I'll tell you a situation like that. I had a client a couple months ago, and I had a financial planner colleague, and he called me and he said, Anita, I have a client. She is in the ER right now. She was confused. She started walking onto the freeway, and the police officers, they picked her up and they brought her to the ER. She doesn't have any children. Her nearest relative is a senior. Herself is her sister. And they said, can you please help her? And I said, absolutely. I right away drove to that hospital. I pivoted. I dropped everything else on my plate. I went directly to that hospital. I met with the social worker, the case manager, the nurse, the doctor to figure out, what does this person need? She had dementia. She also had an infection, which makes it a lot worse.
Right.
Hydration with a UTI and dementia is not a good mixture. It creates behaviors, confusion, all of these things. And she was really in her worst state. She couldn't go home. Her home was also a boarding situation.
Right.
I met with the family there. Then right away, I talked to the sister. We identified communities, and I said, these are going to be the best fit for her. We jumped in our separate cars. We drove to the communities, and we found the perfect fit. It was a community in the hills that had chickens on the property and trees. And this person was very outdoorsy. She also did a lot of art. And this was such a great fit for her family member that we were in the room with the sales director, and the sister, she started crying. She says, this is a lot farther than I wanted it to be, because she lived in San Francisco. She's a senior herself. She didn't want to drive far to see her sister. But she said it would be a disservice if I put my sister closer to me when this is the perfect community for her and they can meet her need. And she cried and she says, this is the perfect fit. I feel good about it. And she moved in there within a number of days. We did a million things to make it happen. That's a whole different story, all the things that we did to accomplish that. But the sales director, a couple weeks later, she sent me a photo of this resident. She was dancing with other residents. And I think it was a Halloween event or some type of event. And she was dressed up and everything was decorated and she was dancing. And I shared that with the family, and they were just so thrilled that we found the perfect fit for her. And that's one story among many. My mind is honestly flooded with additional stories very similar to that. And that is a big part of why we do what we do. And we feel so much reward at the end of the day when we're able to help people in that way that they weren't able to help themselves.
Anita, you are building a legacy, whether you intended to or not. What does legacy mean to you in this line of work?
I don't take that lightly. I feel very honored for you to even say that. And to ask me the questions that you were asking me today is such an honor. A legacy for me is really making change within senior living, specifically within placement. I hope to be a pioneer in this industry. And I think that my background has equipped me to serve my colleagues and to serve this industry well. And there's a lot of different visions that I have and things that I would like to implement to really make this, at the end of the day, the best possible outcome for the seniors that we serve. My legacy would be to provide education and change to our industry.
How do you want Neighborly to continue growing and evolving?
I think quality is important. And I'm really, really happy with our team. And I think we have such a quality team. Honestly, I have some of the VIPs of our industry on my team. And I am so privileged and humbled and honored that they have agreed to be on the Neighborly team with me. We share that same vision. Quality is important. We all just want to keep getting better at what we do and serving others. That's the most important thing, quality.
And lastly, as we come to a close on this episode, any final words and where can people connect with you or refer families who need help?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's really important that we make those connections early and everybody knows a senior, whether that is your neighbor, your family member, everybody has somebody or a client, patient, but making that introduction sooner so that people have choice in their next stage in life. Let's get this information to them sooner. And if you don't have that information, connect with somebody like me that does, and let's be a resource to the people around us. To connect with us, there's a million ways. We try to be very accessible. You can connect with us online. We have a million different socials, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. We also have some things on YouTube, but we try to really put our information out there to be accessible for people to reach out with us or to us.
Excellent. Anita, thank you so much for sharing your story, your wisdom, and your heart with us today. I truly admire the legacy you're building, not just through your agency, but through the agents you mentor and the families you serve. You're raising the standard for what senior placement should look like, and I'm grateful to have had you on the show. And for those of you watching or listening, if your loved one is considering senior living and you need to figure out what to do with their home, let's talk. Schedule a free consultation and learn more about my services at www.simplifyseniortransitions.com. Have a quick question, DM me on Instagram at SoulByDale. And don't forget, you can catch up on all the past episodes of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast right here on YouTube, or stream them anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other major platforms. My promise with every episode is to bring you real stories, practical tools, and expert insights to help your family move forward with confidence instead of stress. If you found this conversation helpful, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Your reviews help more families discover these resources and navigate senior transitions with confidence. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who might need this information. Thanks for tuning in. And one last thank you to Anita for being on the show with me today.
Thank you so much, Dale. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And for the rest of you, I'll see you on the next episode of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast.